Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are doing something a little different.
Yeah,
Usually, we're wading through stacks of business journals, tech specs, or, scientific papers looking for that hard data.
right.
But today, we're looking into a mirror. We're unpacking a fable that has sold millions and millions of copies worldwide.
A book that you've probably seen on the shelf at every single airport bookstore for the last, 30 years?
Exactly. Yet it started with only one person buying it in the first week. We are talking about Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist.
It's such a fascinating choice for a deep dive because it sits in this weird intersection of literature, self-help, and spirituality.
It really does.
And people often describe it as life-changing, and I really don't use that term lightly here. It's a story about destiny, sure.
Yeah.
But at its heart, it's a story about the terrifying gap between who we are right now, comfortable, safe in our routine.
And who we suspect we could become.
Exactly, if
Yeah.
we weren't so afraid of losing what we already have.
Yeah. And to kick this off, I want to start right at the very beginning. Not with the main character, Santiago, but with the prologue. Because, honestly, when I first read this, it just stopped me in my tracks.
Oh, yeah.
It takes this classic Greek myth, one we all think we know, and it flips it completely on its head. We all know the story of Narcissus, right? The beautiful boy who knelt by a lake to look at his own reflection.
The classic cautionary tale. He falls in love with his own reflection. He's so obsessed with his own beauty that he, falls into the lake and drowns. A flower grows in his place.
And the moral has always been.
Don't be vain. Vanity leads to destruction. It's pretty straightforward.
Exactly. But Coelho does something so clever here. In his prologue, he has an alchemist reading this version of the story where, after Narcissus dies, the goddesses of the forest, the Oreads, they come to the lake.
Right.
And they find the lake has been transformed. It's gone from a freshwater lake into an urn of salty tears. The lake is weeping.
And naturally, the goddesses, they just assume the lake is crying for the beautiful boy. They say something like, "We're not surprised you're weeping for Narcissus. You were the only one who could see his beauty up close."
But the lake asks a question that just stops them cold. The lake asks, was Narcissus beautiful?
I love that moment. The goddesses are just completely shocked. They're thinking, who better to know than you? He spent all day, every day staring at you.
And here is the flip. The lake says, I weep for Narcissus, but I never noticed that Narcissus was beautiful. I weep because each time he knelt beside my banks, I could see in the depths of his eyes my own beauty reflected.
It completely shifts the perspective. It moves the story from being about vanity and isolation to being about connection.
Yes.
It suggests that everything reflects everything else. The lake wasn't just a passive mirror. It was getting something back from the boy. It suggests that beauty and meaning are a loop, not some one-way street.
It really sets the stage for the entire book. It tells you immediately, this isn't just about one guy walking to Egypt to find some gold. It's about how the individual connects to the universe.
Precisely. The core premise we are diving into today is exactly that connectivity. It's a fable about the connection between the individual and what Coelho calls the soul of the world. We're going to trace the journey of a shepherd named Santiago. But as we do, you have to keep that prologue in mind. This is not just a travelogue.
It's a blueprint.
It's a blueprint, yeah, for recognizing opportunity and, I think more importantly, for overcoming the paralyzing fear of failure.
Which is incredibly ironic considering the history of this book itself is basically a masterclass in overcoming failure.
Oh, it really is.
Oh, I was reading the foreword, and it is just wild to think about. This book is a global phenomenon now. It's been translated into dozens and dozens of languages.
Right.
But it was originally published in Brazil 25 years before the edition we're looking at. And it didn't just fail, it tanked.
Tanked is putting it politely. It sold practically nothing.
2 copies in the first 6 months. And get this.
Yeah.
The records imply it was to the same person.
No.
Yeah. The publisher literally canceled the contract. They told Coelho, cut your losses, kid. This just isn't happening. He was 41 years old at the time.
Imagine that moment. You're 41. You haven't made it yet. You've poured your soul into a book. You believe it has something important to say. And the market, the entire publishing apparatus, just says, no thanks.
Most people would have gone back to their day job.
Of course, they would have said, well, I tried. But Coelho didn't lose faith. He said he was living his own metaphor. He believed in his personal legend, a term we're going to hear a lot today.
He just refused to accept that the story ended there.
Right. He started knocking on other doors. He found another publisher. And eventually, without any massive marketing campaign, it became this organic, Word-of-mouth phenomenon. Bill Clinton was seen with it. Madonna raved about it.
It spent over 300 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list.
It's the ultimate practice what you preach backstory. If he had given up after that first publisher cancels on him, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all.
So, our mission today is to extract the wisdom that caused that phenomenon. We want to understand what the text calls the universal language, and, of course, the personal legend.
And the best way to do that is to walk the path with Santiago.
So let's meet him, Santiago. He's a shepherd in Andalusia in Spain, but right away we see he's not your typical shepherd.
No.
He reads books, he wants to travel, but he's also very comfortable. He has his flock, he has a routine, and he has this really interesting, almost codependent relationship with his sheep.
The sheep are such a crucial symbol right out of the gate.
Right.
Santiago notices something really profound about them. They rely on him entirely for food and water.
Completely.
As long as he finds the best pastures, they are his friends.
Yeah.
But they don't make any decisions. They don't realize that the fields are new or that the seasons are changing. They're just heads down eating. They have traded their awareness for security.
There's a line where he thinks, and it's kind of dark, if I became a monster today and decided to kill them, one by one they would become aware only after most of the flock had been slaughtered. Because they've stopped using their instincts. They just trust him to feed them.
It's a stark metaphor for a certain type of existence, isn't it? The sheep represent people who have traded their freedom, their destiny, for modest security. They want the routine. They want the food and water. They don't want the burden of choice.
And Santiago fears becoming like them. He realizes his life is bound to theirs, but theirs is limited to the next meal. He's terrified that he's just a provider of food rather than an adventurer.
It's the comfort trap. I mean, how many of us are the sheep? We just want the paycheck, the weekend, the food, and we don't look up to see where the shepherd is even taking us.
Exactly. We stopped realizing that the seasons are changing. But Santiago is shaken out of this comfortable routine by two things. First, he has a recurring dream.
Right. He dreams that a child comes and plays with his sheep and then suddenly transports him all the way to the Egyptian pyramids.
And the child tells him, if you come here, you will find a hidden treasure.
And of course, he wakes up just before the child shows him exactly where it is. That's classic dream frustration.
So he decides to do something about it. He goes to a gypsy woman in Tarifa to get it interpreted. And I love this encounter because he's expecting some, mystical, complex answer. He's expecting a riddle.
And she gives him the most frustrating answer possible. She listens to the dream and says, go to the pyramids, you'll find a treasure. That's it. That's the interpretation.
And for this consultation, she demands 1/10 of the future treasure.
Unbelievable.
Santiago is so annoyed. He's thinking, I didn't need to come here to hear that. I knew what the dream said.
But the gypsy says something so profound in response to his annoyance. She says, simple things are the most extraordinary. Only wise men are able to understand them. She gives him the what, but she offers absolutely no advice on the how.
And that's the first test.
That's the first test. The dream tells you what you want, but it doesn't give you the map. And often we dismiss the simple answer because we want it to be complicated. We want there to be a hidden trick. But usually the goal is clear. The path is just hard.
The map, or at least the push to start the journey, it comes from a much stranger source. Santiago is sitting in a plaza, trying to read a book, just killing time, and this old man sits down next to him and starts a conversation.
This is Melchizedek, the king of Salem. And this interaction changes everything for Santiago. At first, Santiago thinks the old man is just a nuisance. But then the man writes in the sand. He writes the names of Santiago's parents. He writes Santiago's hidden thoughts, things that absolutely nobody could know.
It's the call to adventure moment. And Melchizedek introduces the central concept of the entire book, the personal legend.
Let's unpack that definition because Coelho is very specific about it. Melchizedek says a personal legend is what you have always wanted to accomplish. He explains that when we are young, everything is clear and everything is possible. Children aren't afraid to dream of being astronauts or explorers.
But as time passes,
A mysterious force begins to convince us that it's impossible to realize that legend.
he calls it the world's greatest lie.
Yes. And this is a concept that resonates with so many people. The lie is that at a certain point, we lose control of what's happening to us, and our lives become controlled by fate.
Right.
Melchizedek is telling Santiago that we always have a choice. We are never just victims of circumstance. And then he drops the most famous line of the book.
When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it.
That idea, the soul of the world, is so appealing. It suggests that your desire isn't just some chemical reaction in your brain, but it's a signal to the universe.
But Melchizedek doesn't just pump him up with motivation. He also gives him a warning about focus. He tells this story, a parable really, about a shopkeeper's son who wants to learn the secret of happiness.
The parable of the oil and the spoon is brilliant in its simplicity.
It really is.
The wise man tells the boy to look around his magnificent palace, the most beautiful palace in the world. But he has to carry a spoon with 2 drops of oil in it. And the condition is, don't spill the oil.
So the boy walks around. He comes back after 2 hours. He's terrified. His eyes have been glued to the spoon the entire time. He hasn't spilled the oil.
Success. Right.
But the wise man asks, did you see my Persian tapestries? Did you see the gardens?
And the boy has to admit he saw nothing. He was too focused on the oil. So the wise man sends him out again. Go see my world. The boy goes out, he relaxes, looks at the ceiling, the gardens, the mountains. He comes back just dazzled, describing everything.
But he looked around so much that he spilled the oil.
That is the tension of life, isn't it? That is the exact struggle of trying to enjoy your life while paying your mortgage.
Absolutely. The lesson is, the secret of happiness is to see all the marvels of the world and never to forget the drops of oil in the spoon.
So in Santiago's context, what is the oil? Is his responsibility, his flock?
It's his foundation. It's his grounding. You can pursue the dream, the marvels of the world, but you can't completely abandon your core responsibilities or your sense of self. You need balance.
That's a great way to put it.
Santiago has to sell his sheep to travel, yes, but he carries the lessons of the shepherd with him. He can't just be a drifter. He has to be a pilgrim. There's a difference.
So he takes the leap. He sells the sheep. He gives Melchizedek 1/10 of his flock payment for the advice, and he crosses the strait to Africa, to Tangier. He's got money in his pocket. He's excited. He's thinking, the universe is conspiring to help me. I'm going to find this treasure.
And the universe immediately punches him in the face.
It really does. Which brings us to segment 2, the reality check. Because honestly, if the book was just boy wants treasure, boy gets treasure, it would be pretty boring.
It would be.
Melchizedek had mentioned the principle of favorability or beginner's luck, and Santiago feels it at first. But the moment he gets to Tangier, he is completely out of his depth.
He doesn't speak Arabic. He's culturally isolated. He meets a young man who speaks Spanish and immediately trusts him. He gives the guy all his money to buy camels.
And while they're in the market, Santiago gets distracted by a beautiful sword. He's just staring at it, imagining himself as a warrior. And when he turns around,
The friend is gone.
yeah,
With all his money.
it's just heartbreaking. He's stranded in a foreign country, completely penniless. He went from adventurer to victim in about 2 hours.
He spends the night sleeping in the market plaza. He's crying. He wants to go home. He's regretting the entire thing.
But this is where that mental shift happens. And I think this is the first real step of alchemy in the book. It's not turning lead to gold. It's turning despair into agency.
Yes.
He sits there as night falls, feeling sorry for himself. But then he touches the stones Melchizedek gave him, Urim and Thummim. He remembers the old king, and he realizes he has a choice in how he frames this whole narration.
He thinks, I can be the poor victim of a thief, or I can be an adventurer in quest of treasure.
And he decides he's an adventurer. The situation hasn't changed. He's still broke, but his capacity to handle it has completely shifted. He looks at the market not as a hostile place, but as a new world he is now exploring.
He needs money, though. Mindset doesn't buy food. So he climbs a hill and finds a crystal shop. And this brings us to one of my favorite characters, the crystal merchant.
Oh, the merchant is the perfect foil to Santiago. Santiago is all about movement and change. The merchant is all about stasis.
Santiago gets a job there, just cleaning glasses. And because he has this beginner's mind, he starts suggesting things. Hey, let's build a display case outside to attract customers.
And the merchant is so hesitant, he says people will bump into it. But he allows it, and business picks up.
And then later, Santiago says, let's serve tea in the crystal glasses. People will want to buy the tea, and they'll buy the glass too.
Again, the merchant resists. We've never done that. But he allows it. And business just explodes. They become rich. But the merchant isn't happy. He's sad.
That's what I didn't get at first. If he's making all this money, why is he sad?
Well, we learned that for 30 years, the merchant has dreamed of going to Mecca. It's one of the 5 pillars of Islam. He has the money now. He can hire someone to watch the shop. But he refuses to go. He tells Santiago, I'm afraid that if my dream is realized, I'll have no reason to go on living. He prefers the dream of Mecca to the reality of it.
Wow.
The dream keeps him alive. He sits in his shop, smoking his hookah, imagining the walk around the holy stone. He's terrified that the reality might be disappointing, or even worse, that once it's done, his life will just be empty.
That is tragic. He's in love with the longing, not the fulfillment.
Precisely. And Santiago sees this. He realizes that he does not want to be like the merchant. He doesn't want to live in the what-if.
So after 11 months working there, Santiago has enough money to buy double the flock he had before and go back to Spain. He's rich, he's successful, the safe choice is right there in front of him.
It's the crystal shop trap. You get halfway to your dream, you find a comfortable little plateau, and you just stay there.
Exactly. But he remembers the old king, he remembers the pyramids, and he leaves Tangier not to go home, but to cross the desert to Egypt.
And as he leaves, the merchant says a word that becomes a recurring theme, mektub.
It is written.
It implies that destiny is already penned by a higher hand. The merchant uses it to accept his lot, that he will never go to Mecca. But Santiago uses it to accept the risk of the next step.
So Santiago joins a caravan crossing the Sahara. And here we meet another character who's also seeking something, but in a totally different way. The Englishman.
The Englishman is great because he represents the purely intellectual approach to wisdom. He's brought suitcases full of books on alchemy. He's looking for the Alchemist, a man rumored to be 200 years old, living at the El Fayum oasis.
The contrast between Santiago and the Englishman is so sharp. The Englishman is reading about the desert while riding a camel through it. Santiago is watching the desert.
Right. The Englishman is trying to learn the universal language through complex codes and diagrams. He talks about the Emerald Tablet, which is like the Rosetta Stone of alchemy. He talks about the masterwork.
Can we pause on that for a second? The masterwork, he explains it has two parts, right?
Yes. In alchemy theory, the masterwork is the ultimate goal. It consists of a liquid part and a solid part. The liquid is the elixir of life. It cures all illnesses and keeps the alchemist from growing old.
And the solid part.
The solid is the philosopher's stone, a small sliver of which can turn huge quantities of metal into pure gold.
It sounds like magic or chemistry.
To the Englishman, it is chemistry. He thinks if he can just figure out the formula, the code, he can do it. He explains that alchemy is about purifying matter. But he struggles. He's trying so hard to understand the theory that he completely misses the practice.
He's surrounded by the desert, which is this massive teacher, but his nose is buried in a book. He's overcomplicating simple things, which is the exact opposite of what the gypsy woman advised.
And Santiago, on the other hand, he talks to a camel driver, a guy who isn't reading anything at all.
And the camel driver is another source of this grounded wisdom. He teaches Santiago about living in the present. He says, I don't live in either my past or my future. If I can be firm in the present, I'll be a happy man.
He also touches on fear. He says we only fear losing what we have, our crops, our lives, because we think our story and the world's story are separate. But they aren't. They're written by the same hand.
It's that connectivity again. If you trust the hand that wrote the history, you don't have to fear the outcome. And then the caravan finally arrives at the El Fayum oasis. And the vibe changes. It's not just about treasure or books anymore.
Wow.
It's about love.
Enter Fatima. Santiago meets her at a well. And for him, it's just instantaneous. The book says he learned the most important part of the language of the world, love.
This is where the conflict gets really real, and it's a conflict I think a lot of people face. Santiago wants to stay. He's found a beautiful woman. He has money from the crystal shop. He's safe in the oasis. He thinks maybe she is the treasure. Maybe this is enough.
This is the second great temptation. First was the crystal shop financial comfort. Now it's the oasis emotional comfort. But Fatima is extraordinary.
She really is.
She isn't the typical damsel who begs the hero to stay safe. She tells him, I am a woman of the desert. She says that she wants him to wander as free as the wind. Her logic is so powerful. If I am really part of your dream, you will come back. If you stay just because you're afraid of losing me, then you aren't following your legend.
That's a high bar for a relationship. Leave me to prove you love yourself enough to come back.
It is. She refuses to be the anchor that holds him back. She wants to be the port he returns to. She understands Maktab better than anyone. She trusts that if their love is true, it is part of the soul of the world, and therefore it cannot be lost by him pursuing his destiny.
While he's wrestling with this, he has a vision. He sees two hawks fighting in the sky and intuitively knows it means an army is going to attack the oasis.
Which is a huge deal. The oasis is supposed to be neutral territory. Nobody attacks an oasis. It's against all the rules of the desert.
But he trusts this intuition, this sudden immersion in the universal current. He goes to the tribal chieftains, and the stakes are incredibly high.
They tell him, "We will break our tradition and carry arms tomorrow. If the enemy comes, we will kill them, and you will get a piece of gold for every enemy dead. But if they don't come,
You will die!
talk about pressure. If you're wrong, we execute you."
But he is right. The attack happens, the oasis is saved, and Santiago becomes a hero. And that is when he finally meets the man the Englishman was looking for, the alchemist.
And he's not what Santiago expects at all. He's this figure in black on a white horse with a falcon on his shoulder. And he's terrifying at first. He puts the sword right to Santiago's forehead.
He's testing Santiago's courage. He says courage is the quality most essential to understanding the language of the world. Once Santiago passes that test, the alchemist tells him, "You have to leave. You have to go to the pyramids."
This leads to one of the most poignant warnings in the book. Santiago argues, "But I have Fatima. I'm happy." And the alchemist sketches out the future for him if he stays. And it's a grim prediction. It's the crystal merchant scenario all over again, but so much worse. The alchemist says, "You'll be happy for a year. You'll be rich. You'll be a counselor to the chieftains. But by the second year, the omens will return. You'll try to ignore them. By the third year, Fatima will feel guilty that she kept you there.
And by the fourth year,
The omens will leave you, and you'll spend the rest of your life knowing you failed to live your legend. You'll just be a rich, regretful counselor at an oasis."
that is the nightmare scenario, being rich but filled with regret. So he leaves. He rides into the deep desert with the alchemist, and this part of the journey is so internal. The alchemist tells him to listen to his heart.
And Santiago's heart is annoying. It's anxious. It's screaming. It's afraid of suffering. It says, "Don't go on. We might get hurt. Let's go back to Fatima."
I identified with that so much. My heart is rarely a source of calm wisdom. It's usually a source of panic.
And the alchemist gives that famous advice. "Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams." He explains that the heart is afraid because it fears losing what it has. But once you understand that everything is part of the one thing, fear just dissolves.
But then things get dangerous, like mortal peril dangers. They get captured by a warring tribe.
Yes, they're accused of being spies.
And the alchemist, in a move that seems completely insane, says to the chief, "This boy is an alchemist. He understands the powers of nature. Give him 3 days, and he will transform himself into the wind and destroy your camp. If he can't, you can kill us."
Santiago is panicking. He's like, "I don't know how to turn into the wind. I heard sheep." He turns to the alchemist and says, "You just got us killed." The alchemist is so calm, he just says, "If you can't do it, you're going to die anyway."
This is the climax of the book, and it's not an action scene in the traditional sense. It's a metaphysical dialogue. Santiago has 3 days. He spends them just looking at the desert. And on the third day, the tribe gathers. Santiago goes to the edge of the cliff. He has to talk to the elements.
It's a literal conversation. First, he talks to the desert.
He explains love to the desert. He says somewhere in the sands, a woman is waiting for him. He says that love is the force that transforms and improves the soul of the world. But the desert says, "I am sand. I can only offer you my dunes. I can't turn you into wind." So the desert tells him to ask the wind.
The wind is proud. It says, "I'm strong. I blow everywhere. I know the whole world." But when Santiago asks to be transformed, the wind says, "We are two different things." And Santiago challenges it. He says, "I want to be like you, to reach every corner of the world."
And the wind is curious. It likes the idea of something new, but admits it can't transform a man. So it kicks up a massive sandstorm, the sim, to blot out the sun so Santiago can look at the sky without being blinded.
Then he talks to the sun. The sun claims to be wise, to see everything. It talks about the soul of the world. The sun says it loves the earth, and their love creates life. But Santiago pushes back. He says, "You look from a distance. You don't know what it is to be human."
And even the sun admits it has limitations. It cannot perform the transformation. It tells Santiago to speak to the hand that wrote all.
This is the moment of realization. He turns to the Creator, but he doesn't speak. He doesn't ask for anything. He engages in a prayer without words.
This is crucial. He realizes that the soul of God is his own soul. He understands that everything, the sand, the wind, the sun, the boy, is one thing. It's a moment of total unity.
And in that understanding, he taps into the power of creation. He isn't asking a separate god for a favor. He is realizing he is part of the force that creates. When the sandstorm settles, Santiago has disappeared and reappeared on the other side of the camp.
The tribesmen are terrified and they let them go. That scene is just wild because it suggests that alchemy isn't about chemistry sets and formulas, it's about spiritual evolution.
Exactly. The alchemist says that evolution is the purpose of alchemy. Lead becomes gold not just to be rich, but because it has evolved to its highest state. Santiago had to evolve to his highest state to survive. He had to realize his own divinity.
So he makes it, he reaches the pyramids, he's alone now. The alchemist left him at a Coptic monastery. He sees the pyramids rising from the sand, illuminated by moonlight. He falls to his knees and weeps, and he remembers the omen. Dig where your tears fall.
He digs. He digs all night. His hands are bleeding. He finds absolutely nothing.
And then it gets worse. Refugees from the tribal wars find him. They see him digging and assume he's hiding gold. They beat him. They steal the gold the alchemist gave him. He's nearly dead.
And the leader of the refugees stands over him and asks what he's doing. Santiago whispers that he's digging for treasure from a dream.
And here's the twist that makes the whole book. The refugee leader laughs at him. He calls him stupid. He says, "You're going to die because of a dream." I also had a recurrent dream right here on this spot.
Oh, so good.
I dreamed of a ruined church in Spain where shepherds sleep, and that if I dug at the roots of the sycamore tree growing in the sacristy, I would find a secret treasure. But I'm not so stupid as to cross an entire desert just because of a dream.
The irony is just perfect. The treasure was back home the whole time, right where he started, under the tree where he slept in chapter 1.
Santiago laughs. He laughs through the pain, because now he knows.
He goes back to Spain. He goes to the Rowan church. He digs under the sycamore tree, and he finds a chest of Spanish gold coins and jewels.
And this raises the big question, why? Why did the universe send him to Africa through robberies and wars and death threats, just to bring him back to his starting point?
He asks his wind that same question. He's like, couldn't you have saved me the trouble?
But think about who Santiago was at the beginning. He was a boy who knew sheep. If he had dug up that gold then, what would he have done with it?
Probably bought more sheep or lost it.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't have known the language of the world.
He wouldn't have met the king. He wouldn't have learned to trust himself in Tangier. He wouldn't have learned the silence of the desert.
He wouldn't have met Fatima.
True. That's the big one.
The journey was never about the gold. The gold was just the mechanism to get him to take the journey. The real alchemy was the transformation of Santiago himself. He needed to become a different person, a person worthy of the treasure, before he could find it.
There's a beautiful little addition at the end of the book, a sort of preview for another one of Coelho's works, Warrior of the Light. It tells a story about a boy trying to hear submerged temple bells.
Yes. The boy tries so hard to hear these bells from a sunken island. He sits by the ocean for months and months. He can't hear them. He gets frustrated.
And he eventually stops trying.
She stops trying and just listens to the ocean, the seagulls, the wind. And in that state of acceptance and connection with nature, he finally hears the bells.
It connects right back to the same theme. We are all warriors of the light. If we keep that childlike ability to look at the world without bitterness, if we fight for what we believe in.
It's a reminder that the universe is speaking to us constantly, through omens, through intuition, through desire. The question is, are we too distracted to listen? Or are we too afraid to act on what we hear?
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what is the core takeaway for the listener? We've talked about sheep, alchemy, deserts, and wind. But what do we take into our Monday morning?
I think it comes down to fear. The alchemist says there is only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve: the fear of failure. Santiago faces failure constantly. He loses his money, he faces death. But he keeps going because he realizes that the journey itself is the reward.
Right.
If he had died in the desert, he would have died seeing the pyramids, not wondering about them from a field in Spain.
And that love, true love, like Fatima's, isn't a cage, it's fuel.
Absolutely. The language of the world is enthusiasm. It's doing things with love and with purpose.
The book ends with such a sensory image. Santiago is back in Spain. He has his gold, and he feels the wind blowing, the levanter.
And it brings a scent he knows well: Fatima's perfume. And a touch of a kiss.
And he whispers, "I'm coming." He's not settling down with the gold. He's going back to the desert, back to her.
Which is the ultimate proof that he learned the lesson. The treasure wasn't the end. It was just the means to return to his true love with the freedom to be himself.
That is a beautiful place to leave it. For everyone listening, here is your question for the week. What is a personal legend you are ignoring because you are afraid of the desert? What dream did you bury under a sycamore tree because it felt safer to just tend the sheep?
And remember, the universe might just be waiting for you to take that first step.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see